Anyway, we're talking about Gaza. Israel is now doing a ground invasion of Gaza City as the UN Commission has officially announced that a genocide is being committed. Okay. Also, Ta-Nehisi Coates, friend of the show, wrote an article about Charlie Kirk at Vanity Fair, and I kind of want to look at that later. Meanwhile, one other Israel note: Israeli occupation soldier who killed children and women in Gaza, Tal Shalev, is the new CNN senior journalist in Jerusalem's bureau. Nice. No biases there, bro. Come on.
Through the night, Israel's air assault on Gaza City intensified still further as its ground forces readied to move in. By Israel's own estimates, as many as 650,000 Palestinians remain in the city. This morning, rescue efforts underway to recover survivors from new ruins. This block, home to dozens of people, hit at 1 a.m. Rescue workers find Marah al-Haddad trapped. Over 10 long hours, they work to free her leg and at last take her to hospital. She says she knows of 2 other girls who didn't get out. Other witnesses say more than 20 remained trapped. Israel says thousands of Hamas fighters remain in Gaza City. The Defense Minister Israel Katz today calling it Hamas's governing symbol, that its fall would prompt the fall of Hamas, and that if Hamas fought on, Gaza would be destroyed. As the biggest Israeli ground operation since the start of the war unfolds, a determination today from the UN Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory that Israel is committing genocide. The Commission says it's found evidence of systematic and unprecedented killings, deliberate starvation, denial of health care, sexual and gender-based violence, and the direct targeting of children. Israel's foreign ministry immediately calling it distorted and false, saying the 3-member panel was working as a Hamas proxy, repeating Hamas lies. Genocide, as defined in the Convention of 1948, is the crime committed with the specific intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial or religious group. The Commission says Israel has committed 4 such genocidal acts: killing members of the group through targeting civilians and the deliberate infliction of conditions of life that caused their deaths, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group through direct attacks against civilians, mistreatment of detainees, forced displacement and environmental destruction, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, including blocking essential aid, food, water, electricity and fuel, and finding that starvation had been used as a weapon, and imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group through the attack on Gaza's largest fertility clinic, reportedly destroying around 4,000 embryos. The Commission found that Israel had shown its intent, key to proving genocide, through statements from the Prime Minister, the then Defense Minister and President at the start of the war, and that the way its military had prosecuted the conflict since was further circumstantial evidence of intent.
Therefore, the Commission concludes that the Israeli authorities and Israeli security forces have the genocidal intent to destroy, in whole or in part, the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The Commission finds that the Israeli political and military leaders are agents of the State of Israel. Therefore, their acts are attributable to the State of Israel. The Commission therefore concludes that the State of Israel bears responsibility for the failure to prevent genocide, for the commission of genocide, and for the failure to punish genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Coalition of the Willing? UN forces stopping Israel's unlimited death and destruction campaign?
Israel's representative in Geneva called it a fake report, driven in part by anti-Semitic bias.
Israel categorically rejects the libelous rant published today by this Commission of Inquiry. It spreads the malicious genocide narrative. I pose to you to read carefully this 72-page report and try and find the word Hamas. Hamas does not exist.
It's like determining whether or not the Nazis committed genocide upon Jews and many other groups and being like, Why doesn't this report mention the nature of the Jews? Why doesn't this report mention the partisans? Doesn't mention the partisan violence? It's really fucked up. Get new material, man. It's all Hamas. It's all Hamas. Everything is Hamas. It's also crazy because I don't know if you guys know this, but the genocide is the crime of all crimes. So once it's determined that a country is actually doing genocide, it doesn't matter. Like even another genocide of the genocidaires is unwarranted. That's how significant of a crime it is, right? So there is no counter narrative once it is determined on its own grounds that Israel is committing a genocide, as the UN report has concluded, understandably, maybe a little late, but it's the most comprehensive investigation thus far from an official international organization. This is very, very important. But once that declaration is made, it's over. At that point, you're simply defending genocide. Now, obviously, this only seeks to expand the permission structure, and it's still up to all of us to consistently keep up the pressure to make our respective governments recalculate the cost of doing unlimited genocide to the Palestinians and being in this dual side cult with Israel. If your expectation is, oh, finally the UN recognized it, and you just stop the awareness initiatives, you stop the direct action, you stop protesting, you stop frustrating your politicians at their town halls and whatnot, demanding every type of boycott that you can against the apartheid state that is currently doing a genocide. Both of these things have been reality. Genocide has been a reality since October 8, 2023, and the apartheid state has been a reality since 1948. And now there's official confirmation from international organs of justice, NGOs, and even the United Nations for both the genocide and the apartheid. We are morally culpable. We are offering material support here in the Western world to Israel. Our administrations recognize what's going on. They recognize the discontent that is only blowing up amongst the population, human beings with a conscience. They cannot stand idly by and watch billions of tax dollars going to this state to continue killing people in broad daylight. The American government turning around and offering political cover to Israel as a belligerent. And yet, this recognition by the United Nations is nothing if the people don't act. The commission actually mentioned Hamas, but it does not matter. Genocide is a genocide. No ands, ifs, or buts.
Is some alien that attacked Israel on the 7th of October.
Today's conclusion by the UN Commission is not a judicial verdict. The International Court of Justice continues to hear South Africa's genocide case against Israel, with a ruling not expected for years. Might it, though, increase international pressure? The Israeli Prime Minister yesterday spoke of the need for self-reliance in the face of a growing siege, as he called it, against Israel, centered in Western Europe.
On God, he's going Jusha, bro. But this time, instead of Juche, Marxist-Leninist Jushaist principle, he's doing Jusha. Jew. Jucha. That's right. It's North Korean style, dude. That's whack joke, bro. I know. I'm sorry for comparing the beautiful state of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea to the criminal Zionist entity that is Israel. That was fucked up of me. A nation that was born out of being genocided by the allied forces of the world with unlimited firepower, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, can never be compared to a nation that is a crime from its inception. I apologize.
Last month, Germany announced restrictions on arms shipments to Israel. Today, its foreign minister reacting to the report.
Die im Bericht beschriebenen
I'm a groiper and you went too far there. Sarcasm. Do you think Bernie will call it a genocide now? Who knows?
Vorfälle sind außerordentlich besorgniserregend.
The incidents described in the report are extremely worrying. In armed conflicts, all parties are bound by international humanitarian law. In order to end the suffering in Gaza, we believe it is crucial, as we have repeatedly emphasized, that a ceasefire is finally reached.
Dass es endlich zu einem Waffenstillstand kommt.
But Israel's key ally holding out little hope of that. The US Secretary of State swapping Israel for Qatar today, saying Hamas now had only days or weeks to accept Israel's terms and cease to exist. Few in Gaza expect anything other than Israel's promised invasion into Gaza City. Thousands more today thronging the coast road south as a military the UN Commission is now formally accused of carrying out a genocide intensifies its campaign. Right, well, joining us now is Nimer Sultani from the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, an expert in international law. What then is your assessment of this report from the UN Commission of Inquiry?
This report further solidifies the consensus amongst the international legal scholarship, amongst the human rights community, amongst genocide studies scholars, Holocaust studies scholars, that Israel has been committing a genocide since October 2023, that this is not a war, but a genocide. When you see the mass slaughter, when you see the massive and comprehensive destruction of everything from cemeteries to schools to mosques to healthcare system to water infrastructure, and when you add to that the starvation and the over 20,000 Palestinian children killed, the inevitable conclusion, according to the UN Commission of Inquiry, which is an independent commission, that this is a genocide. Israel has been committing a genocide in Gaza since October 2023.
What is the distinction here? Because there is an International Court of Justice case ongoing brought by South Africa against Israel, accusing Israel of genocide. This isn't a judicial finding or judgment, is it? As you say, it's a commission. So legally, what power does it have? What standing does it have?
This UN Commission inquiry becomes the first independent commission that also mentions that this is a genocide by Israel. And therefore, it solidifies the consensus and becomes a nail in the coffin of genocide denial. And this genocide denial has acted to delay action on behalf of states, to delay recognition of the genocide in media outlets, in academic institutions, and of course of government.
I mean, Israel points out or has said today that this is...
For the record, the reason why I get very frustrated with fascists and the way that they talk about how, like, Jews are doing this, Jews are doing that, it's all Jew, is because it actually takes away the responsibility from the parties that are completely involved in this. They have this nonsensical notion that the United States of America, as a matter of fact, is not doing this voluntarily, but simply doing it because they have been mind controlled by the Jews to do so. This is not true. Okay? Even the American Jewish opinion on Israel is actually not that significant in this process. Sure, it doesn't hurt, especially when you want to use Jews as a marginalized population, as a way to say, oh, how dare you actually criticize Israel? You're being anti-Semitic. But the reality of the matter is, it is the American state that wants this to happen and absolutely keeps pushing for it to happen and does nothing to stop it and has all the power to stop it if it wanted to. Okay? Fascists, on the other hand, who have this false notion of Christian nationalism, in many instances where they believe that like Christian nationalism is going to take root in America, who are anti-Semitic in their conspiracies, do so in a way that abdicates responsibility away from the American government, Christian Zionism, and the like. This got 250,000 views.
Download this video, not just save it, but
What is
download this video. So I thought I'll check out who owns the UN buildings.
What? Are you doing a oh, God. 9/11? Israel did 9/11 conspiracy video? Really? Ay, ay, ay. Okay, brother. All right, let's continue.
A report that hasn't mentioned Hamas in any of its 72 pages, that Hamas and its fighters acted with genocidal intent on October the 7th. And it says that this is a report based on falsehoods by Hamas and is acting as a proxy for them. What's your response to that?
Obviously, this is false because in June 2024, the UN Commission of Inquiry produced two reports.
Netanyahu blames Muslim immigration for Europe's anti-Israel policies. Yep, that's right. I mean, low key, there's an argument you could make, just not in the direction that Benjamin Netanyahu thinks, which is that like there is a correct way to interpret this argument. Okay? That is, of course, that there are a lot of racist motherfuckers in Europe that go, okay, Israel's destabilizing the region and it's causing Muslims to come here. That is unironically the white nationalist anti-Israel argument. As a matter of fact, that is the isolationist argument from the far right. They literally go, stop interfering in these places because then Muslims, scary Muslims, Muslims that we hate, end up coming to the fucking nation state, to the homeland. Of course, that's not what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying. Benjamin Netanyahu is claiming that there is a fifth column style Islamic invasion that has taken place quietly and silently that has made it so that these politicians are now all Muslim. They actually secretly said the Shahada. They will see the light of Allah. They will see Jannah. And that is the reason why, inshallah, they say the Zionist entity must fall. That's what he thinks. He's a fucking moron. Yeah, they're all doing secret Islam. They're all doing taqiyya. They're not even Sunni, as a matter of fact. All of these countries are now Shia. They're all Shia. The imamate is going to rise up. It's not the caliphate, but the imamate. Okay? Clearly.
It's one report about Israel's violation of international law till then, 120 pages, and another accompanying report of 60 pages of Palestinian violations of international law. So the UN Commission has been comprehensive in its treatment of international law.
You talk about the obligation on other international actors to respond to this. I mean, we have seen from Germany last month a restriction on some of the arms sales to Israel. It is responsible, estimated, for about 30% of military equipment sales to
some restrictions. Nice, man.
Israel. And as well as that, we've seen Benjamin Netanyahu himself yesterday talking about the need for Israel to be a super Sparta. He says that there is a burgeoning siege, especially in Western Europe, again.
For CNN's Brianna Galadria, the genocide of Palestinians with tens of thousands of people killed is besides the point. Her interview focused on how it affects Israel's international reputation, economy, stock market, and domestic policies. Not the only one, as CNN, who is very obviously pro-Israel unconditionally and will routinely omit key details in an effort to make Israel's reputation look better by the American population.
Against Israel. I mean, do you see a shift in the international response, and do you see it potentially going forward from here?
The UN Commission is asking all states to stop all arms embargo, all arms sales to Israel, all arms trades with Israel, not only 30% or part of it. And what we have seen so far, timid actions by European states. So many European governments like the UK sanctioned what they call extreme ministers in the government. But if you look at the UN Commission report, it focuses on Netanyahu, it focuses on Gallant, it focuses on Herzog, which Starmer.
But in all honesty, immigrants don't assimilate well with the natives. Dog, your name is Microsoft Pizza. Do you know how many assimilated immigrants have worked in that company? Do you know how many? You are in the United States of America, I assume. Anyone who is an American that says immigrants don't assimilate well with the natives, unless you are literally talking about events that transpired before and after 1776, you are a delusional freak. Okay, what the do you mean immigrants don't assimilate to natives? If you're an American, you have to understand, like, this is how this country was built and designed. I'm not racist. Okay, you're not racist. Then I guess you're just stupid and fearful and worried about a reality that does not exist. Only a very small amount? Like only a very small amount of racism? Is that what it is? Or only a very small amount of stupidity? Technically not wrong. The first immigrants did genocide the natives. I know. That's why I said the only time what he is saying is true is when this nation state was incepted, was created on the backs of unlimited genocide to the indigenous population, the actual natives. Everything past that point, and especially contemporary American history, is literally everyone's an immigrant, dude. What? What is this guy saying? Even jokes that are meant to delegitimize ethno-nationalism should be careful and vigilant about using the word Jew as a punchline, especially since you aren't Jewish. It seems like you're doing a righteous thing, attacking Israeli politicians through an illegitimate mean, using the word Jew as a pejorative. When the fuck did I do that? Do you mean when I said instead of Jusha, it's now Jewsha? Is that what you think? That's a pun. There's a double entendre. Jusha is the Marxist-Leninist principle of self-reliance for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, is their guiding ideology. Benjamin Netanyahu himself is saying we must also apply the principle of self-reliance. It's not using the word Jew as a pejorative. Here, I'll give you another joke, for example. Okay? This also pertains to how people clip others out of context and also make it seem as though no one is capable of making jokes. When one says, for example, Jews control the media in Israel, that is a joke. A joke that is supposed to make light of the false anti-Semitic conspiracy that Jews control the media. When you say Jews control the media in Israel, you're making a joke about Israel being a Jewish ethno-state, while also simultaneously making a joke about a very classic anti-Semitic canard. This is not a pejorative in any way, shape, or form, because it is not intended to attack Jewish people.
Have received only recent.
Are you teaching what a joke is? You might be new here, Damien Das, but I do this quite frequently, as a matter of fact. There are a lot of... This is a very anti-ableist broadcast, okay? Yes, I do that a lot. I do it all the time, actually. Far more than I should, but I do it regardless.
But the UN Commission inquiry says he incited to genocide. And this UN Commission of Inquiry report is a damn...
No, it is anti-ableist. We don't do ableism. If you are, for example, too neurodivergent to understand jokes, if you have the type of autism that makes it very difficult for you to comprehend jokes, I will sit here and autistically describe the joke to you, as I do all the time. So that's why I'm saying this is anti-ableist. This is also my third day of describing what a metaphor is and how it's utilized, considering that a lot of people who are political enemies of mine turn around and make it seem as though I am incapable of telling a joke or being hyperbolic or engaging in a metaphor. All right, let's keep going.
Indictment of the policy of the UK government, of the European Commission, of European states that have failed to act, that have continued to shield Israel from accountability, to granted impunity, and in fact have been complicit in Israel's crimes in Gaza.
Israel has announced its ground invasion into Gaza City. I mean, are we looking at the last phase of the Israeli operation now, and all this talk really is not going to be effective? So
the Israelis have been clear that they are seeking the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians from Gaza. The destruction of Gaza, that, with all military units, they have now bulldozers that are destroying house after house after house. And this systematic destruction, as Netanyahu himself said in May 2025 in the Israeli Knesset, is intended for the Palestinians in Gaza not to be able to come back to their homes.
Well, so they would say that they are destroying Hamas infrastructure.
It's not too little too late. Also, this guy, man, can someone in like Western media not always posture as a mouthpiece for Zionism and Israel's genocide? Can we just not have that for one day? Jesus Christ. Even today when the UN is like, no, it's pretty clear, it's a genocide.
Structure ahead of their ground invasion to root out the last remaining thousands of Hamas fighters. And they have said that in the future, Palestinians will be allowed to return.
Well, if you are going to destroy the Palestinians entirely in the Gaza Strip in order to defeat Hamas, that's also genocide. There is no security rationale for the total destruction of the education system. There is no security rationale that can justify the total destruction of the healthcare system.
There's no security rationale to justify genocide. President Higgins suggests Israel should be excluded from the UN. My goat, my king. What an amazing person. Oh, also, there's some new Hosbert shit too. But before we get to that, Israeli responses are becoming so boring. Here's Chris Sidati, UN Commissioner, on Israel's response to the Commission's report concluding Israel's committing a genocide in Gaza.
Israeli Foreign Ministry today decried a distorted and false report and said that 3 individuals, so referring to the Commission of Inquiry, 3 individuals serving as Hamas proxies notorious for their openly anti-Semitic positions. Could you please comment on that?
These reports should be taken seriously, but honestly, the Israeli responses are becoming so boring. You know, they say the same thing every time. They're producing the responses by ChatGPT these days, and they spend so much money in the Foreign Ministry on propaganda, you'd think that they would actually come up with something original. I would want them to engage with the evidence.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's unexpected. That is like, that's some shit I say. What the fuck? Not the commissioner of the Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and in Israel. Chris Sidati. These responses are getting quite boring. Fucking hell. Get some new material.
But they never engage with the evidence. They put the report into ChatGPT, and then they put out the standard response. So no one takes it seriously, and Jamie, you shouldn't either.
The Israel.
Anyway, where was I? Oh, there's this poll that I obviously want to look at as well. Washington Free Beacon came out with this insane poll where they were trying to defend the principle that like young conservatives are still very much pro-Israel. Influencers like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes may be popular among young conservatives, but their anti-Israel views aren't, a Free Beacon Echelon Insights poll found. Of the 1,000 young conservatives and Trump voters surveyed, an overwhelming majority have a positive view of Israel and support Donald Trump's handling of the U.S.-Israel relationship. For all their fulminating against the Jewish state, 54% of Carlson's listeners and 58% of Owens' listeners have a favorable view of the Jewish state, suggesting that young people may be tuning in, but they aren't being persuaded. Now, this is unimaginable cope, because the very same polls, when you look at the crosstabs, show that 56% of young conservatives agree with the statement that Israel is committing a genocide and that we're probably watching one of the sickest things that's ever happened. And by sick, it doesn't mean like cool, okay? Do you agree or disagree with the following statement made by comedian Theo Vaughn? It just feels to me like it's a genocide against the Palestinians that's happening while we're alive here in front of our eyes. I think we're watching probably one of the sickest things that's ever happened. Strongly / somewhat agree, 56%. Strongly / somewhat disagree, 27%. Does that look like a poll that favors Israel for young conservatives? Israel support. How strongly, if at all, should the U.S. support Israel as an ally? Completely and mostly is at 53%. Rarely / never support, 29%. Come on, man. This poll was commissioned by Paul Singer's Daily Caller to include 2 questions to assess the authority / impact of Theo Vaughn. So you may see pro-Israel groups attempt to target his credibility. Note that Singer, a billionaire hedge funder, is not Christian, but funds pro-Israel Christian groups. What stands out to me from the results is a high percentage of unsure responses. Note the survey also tested messaging for Israel to use to target American conservatives, young American conservatives. You may hear some more often from Israel's advocates, some religious in nature, some not. Okay? They are literally testing out whatever. This is how it starts. This is how American far-right groups, think tanks, were able to craft a very successful anti-trans message, right? They went back to the drawing board and they figured out that if they associated trans people with like sports, an area where Americans have a firm commitment to meritocracy, and also children, an area that Americans want to protect, then you could actually get a lot of positive responses. So what they're doing right now is trying to figure out exactly what kind of messaging works to maintain support among young American conservatives. to ensure that the next generation of Americans are not all completely anti-Israel. They know that they have no way of generating support for young American Democrats, of course, and young American independents. So, yeah, Israel constantly is focus testing, like what kind of messaging actually will hopefully allow Americans to maintain some kind of support, young Americans on the right to maintain some kind of support for Israel. But they're fucking cooked. If this is the best they got, they are cooked. It is, however, important to recognize what are some of the most successful messages that they can push. But ultimately, this is making it seem as though people, young conservatives, still love Israel, and then their own poll shows they do not. Zoran Mamdani is +1 among self-described conservatives aged 18 to 34 in the new Free Beacon-sponsored poll. Mamdani, do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of the following groups or individuals who have been in the news lately? Extremely/somewhat very favorable, 19%. Very somewhat unfavorable, 18%. It's insane that the Dems haven't figured out how big of an issue this was in the presidential race. No. It's not that they couldn't figure it out. It's not that they were deluded. It's not that they were blindsided. It's because they're paid not to figure it out. Please understand. They knew that people fucking hated what Israel was doing. And they said, we don't care. We want to make sure we still defend Israel's genocide. They lost the election because they loved how much Israel was annihilating Palestinian children. Please. That's it. That's it. They lost the election in part due to their loyalty to Israel. They lost the election in part due to the fact that they personally loved that Israel was destroying the Palestinian child population. Only Israel's allowed to spy on America, not the other way around. Oh, yeah. Of course. Remember when Israel was caught placing Stingray devices around the White House during Trump's first term? Did you read the passage in Boris Johnson's memoir where he said his security team found a surveillance device in his personal toilet after Netanyahu used it? Crazy. Yeah, this is also true. And this is the other thing that I was mentioning. Like, this kind of stuff happens all the time. Okay? And people look to it and go, oh my God, they just literally control the American government, because why the fuck is the American government letting this happen? Part of the reason why the American government lets this shit happen is because, one, sophisticated influence peddling operation, unlimited amounts of money that they pump into all of the politicians, and also Zionist social conditioning from virtually every important institution out there. And lo and behold, if you partner that up with Christian Zionism, evangelical Christian Zionism, you arrive at Israel tackling the issue from every angle they possibly can. And the only reason why they're allowed to do that, for as long as they've been able to do that, is because they are an incredibly important ally to American interests in the region. Okay? How should I continue watching your content now that YouTube is funding Israel? What do you mean, dude? Look, Israel's material support for every fucking outlet and every company that exists in the Western world is so pervasive that it quite literally is impossible to avoid. It's like saying, how can I avoid capitalism? Okay? How can I avoid exploitation? Okay? How can I engage in ethical consumption under capitalism? You can't. Oh yeah, the new meta is attacking you for being on Twitch/Amazon for the BDS. No, it's not a real thing, okay? You have to understand. It's not a real thing. That's not a real attack. No pro-Palestinian advocate, no actual Palestinian or Palestine advocate is saying, Hasan, one of the largest advocates for Palestine in North America, why the fuck are you doing that advocacy on Amazon-owned platform Twitch? Okay? No one is actually saying that. It's people who are actually not on board with the cause that just want you to go away. That's it. Please stop listening to idiotic demands being made by people who are not on board with your cause. Yes, the goal here is not to find an ethical means of distributing information. The goal here is simply to stop someone like myself from streaming. And it's a very stupid way to try and attempt to do so, but there are still people who I guess eat that bait. Okay. To whatever extent Kirk focused on Jews, he wanted to separate out Jews who went all in on woke from Jews who are reconsidering their financing of cultural Marxism. Yeah, I mean, Charlie Kirk also says some anti-Semitic shit. Yeah, it's not surprising. But that kind of stuff doesn't matter, because what matters is advocacy for Israel. That's it. You can be as anti-Semitic as you want to, as long as you're pro-Israel. Candace Owens is a great example of this. Candace Owens was incredibly anti-Semitic. But when she became anti-Israel, because she was pro-Israel, okay? Candace Owens was pro-Israel and anti-Semitic. When she worked at the Daily Wire, she was pro-Israel and anti-Semitic. By the end of her Daily Wire experience, the reason why she got fired from the Daily Wire was because she became anti-Semitic and anti-Israel.
I think that it's a very, very important document. And of course, the chair of that working group was the chair of the working group on Rwanda. And it explicitly states that 4 of the main actions...
Bro, why is this guy always hanging around animals, by the way? I mean, I love him. He is the GOAT. But it's always either his dog or I guess like whatever. Is that a horse? He's got a cute-ass dog, too.
As referred to in the 1948 Convention on Genocide, 4 are met. But it goes further and it suggests that the incitement to genocide has been present, and it specifically mentions those in high office who have used language to encourage and to incite genocide. I have to say, I have spoken so often about it, and when I'm coming to what is a celebration of the production of food in all its different ways, and when you think that all of the people killed yesterday and today, half of them were women and children. And I have to say too that I believe that the European Union will find it extraordinarily difficult to ever be a union in any sense again when some of its...
He's at the National Plowing Championship, hence the horse. Okay, so here I want to return to Charlie Kirk